The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I hope that your weekend was spectacular. Hope all the mothers out there enjoyed their weekend, enjoyed their day. And blessings to all of you out there. And here's to many, many more, right? So, pretty interesting weekend for the Commanders. Lot went down over the weekend. Obviously, we talked about this on Friday, heading into the weekend, and the rookie minis were underway. You know, started off with Tressway giving Jaden Daniels the number 5. That was the big story on Thursday. Friday, they actually hit the practice field. They had to go inside. It was raining, so they were inside the bubble. Talked about that a little bit, the energy that was there. You could kind of feel that energy kind of permeating amongst the players and the coaches. And, you know, I talked about it being different. And that's going to be the theme of this offseason, that this is different. And, you know, some of you want instant results, and that may not come. But you can see the wheels turning. You can see why this is going to end up being a whole different situation this time around. That led us into day 2 of the rookie minis, and Dan Quinn made a statement before he even opened his mouth with the shirt that he had on, caused a stir amongst the Washington Commanders fan base. It I think drew out some of those that might have been in hiding or somewhat dormant, we'll call them. And those fans usually show up when the games start. They may be protesting now in the offseason, but those that want the name change, that want the old logo back, and, you know, want that nostalgic feel, Quinn gave them a little taste. We'll dive into that, right? We'll dive into that whole situation because that took on a life of its own. We heard from Brandon Coleman, Washington's 3rd-round selection out of TCU. Will he play guard? Will he play tackle? Will he start? These are all questions we have to ask ourselves as we head into training camp. And there'll be plenty of time for that. But he talked, and then he was talked about this weekend with Dan Quinn and others. So we'll discuss him because he was one of the guys that I said, hey, we didn't hear from Brandon Coleman. We didn't hear from Johnny Newton. Now we know why we didn't hear from Johnny Newton. We're going to talk about that. That became some big news with Commanders fans over the weekend as well, with Johnny Newton and his injury situation. So lots of things transpired. In addition to today, finding out that Malcolm Blacken, who was the senior, I think he was the senior VP of player development. Whatever his title was, he was the head of player development, essentially. And he had been there forever. He's been there so long, I can't remember when Malcolm Blacken wasn't a part of the player development department. So when I tell you shit's changing and it's different, it's changing, okay? Even the people that have been here forever, short of Doug Williams being pushed out of the building, which they're not going to do because he's a legend. You know, he's a part of the fabric of this organization because not only was he the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl, but he was one of the first, you know, quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl here. He was the second, you know, Joe Theismann being the first, obviously, but he was the second of the 3. So there's always going to be a place here for Doug Williams as long as he wants it. But Malcolm Blacken was shown the door, essentially. He will not be back. Add him to the list of guys that will not be returning. I don't think they're done. And I told you that last time when Eric Stokes was essentially relieved of his duties and told he would not be brought back. I said, I don't think they're done. Now that the draft is behind us, you can start reshaping your scouting department. You can start, you can finish, because they've already started the process of reshaping the front office. You can finish doing that now. Don't want to ruffle a ton of feathers. Don't want to rock the boat too much prior to the draft, right? Want to keep everything as normal as possible until you get through the draft. And then once you do that, you thank everybody for their service, and that's when you start making moves. So out with Malcolm Blacken, all right? And then and Adam Peters gets busy right away. And this is not uncommon. I told you you're going to see him bring some guys over from San Francisco that he's comfortable with, that he thinks deserves an opportunity. Once upon a time, he was that guy that was grinding, you know, on boots on the ground as a scout, and somebody saw his work ethic, saw his potential, snatched him away from the day-to-day grind of being at all of these different facilities and, you know, at these different practice facilities and you know, shadowing these teams and trying to get as much information about these players in a specific area as an area scout. Somebody reached out and grabbed him and said, hey, you're more valuable to us here, right? So apparently that's what Adam Peters is doing. He reached back, grabbed a pro scout, a scout, and he was an area scout, and I think they're going to make him a pro scout here in Jack Quagliarello. So that guy was in San Francisco. He's now being brought in here, and you're going to see more of that. I don't think they're done by any stretch of the imagination. So you're going to continue to see those things go on. So we'll get to all of that tonight, and then some in your comments and all of those things. But before we do any of that, take care of a little bit of house cleaning. I want to first extend a massive big ups. Shout out to my guy, Sonny Rawson, for being the very first individual out there to register for the LouieTeeNetwork lifestyle DR trip to the Hard Rock Cafe. Shout out to Sonny Rawson. My guy, Sonny Rawson, is the first to get in on the early bird special. And he said, look, I can't wait. Looking forward to having fun. Bring your bowling shoes, bro. All right. Bring your Nikes too. Okay. Because we're going to have some fun. Laser tag, bowling, all of that good stuff. We're going to get into all of that. So, you know, I'm a competitive guy. We get the competitive juices flowing. So make sure you bring your bowling shoes and bring your Nikes too. Those probably are going to be a necessity as well. So shout out to Sonny Rawson for signing up. And I look forward to many more of you, hopefully, signing up and being able to attend that trip. I am going to drop the link in the see if I did not drop the link in the description, but I'm going to drop the link in the description as well as the comment section of this video. And if you're a mod out there, throughout the course of this video, make sure you're dropping the link to this LouieTeeNetwork Lifestyles trip to the Dominican Republic. Make sure you're dropping that link in the description or in the comment section of the video. I'll start it off. I'll drop the link in myself right now. And then if you're out there, if some mods are out there, y'all keep dropping the links in there as well. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this before I forget, because my mind is terrible. So I'll forget before we get to the end of the show. I'm gonna put this in the description of this video right now as well. So that is now done. So shout out to Sonny Rawson once again for signing up and registering, and can't wait, man. Bart Scott, can't wait. Link is in the comment section right now as we speak. The live chat link is also in the description of this video, and I'll have more details in the coming days. I'm going to cut another promo, another video, and have better details, better specifics, so that you guys can be more aware of what the situation is. But a shout out to Sonny Rawson once again for being the first to sign up. Here's the schedule for the week. I want to give you kind of a rundown of what you guys can expect this week from me. So tonight, obviously, we're talking about the events of the weekend from day 2 of Rookie Minis and so forth and so forth, and all the things that kind of spawned because of that ordeal, and all the things that have taken place, and some of the conversations that we've been having that have intensified a little bit due to the rookies showing up. So we'll have some of those conversations tonight. Obviously, tomorrow, LouieTeeNetwork podcast. We'll get into the happenings of the weekend. Jared Goff just got a massive deal. I don't know if you saw that. So did Buccaneers safety Antoine Winfield Jr. just got some big money. So we'll talk about those deals. NFL schedule release is Wednesday. We've already gotten the very first game of the season, rematch of the AFC Championship game, Ravens and Chiefs, to kick off the NFL season. So we're going to start getting those leaks here. So we'll discuss all the leaks that we've heard tomorrow night, in addition to any other news that's broken and any other things that, kind of tickle our fancy. Obviously, we'll talk NBA playoffs. A lot has transpired since the last time we spoke about the NBA playoffs. And I think everything's kind of gone the way that I thought it was going to go, right? Things are starting to crystallize a bit. So we'll dive into that tomorrow night as well. And so that'll be Tuesday night. Wednesday night, obviously, schedule release. We're going to be all in it. I mean, we are going to pull that schedule back like foreskin. Pause. You weren't ready for that. I'm just making sure y'all awake. It's a little late on the East Coast. Just making sure y'all awake. Y'all with me, okay? But we going to dive in to that schedule and really get to the nitty-gritty of it and kind of see where you guys are with the schedule now that we see where these games are, how they're going to be played, when we play each team, when we play the divisional games, how many prime timers did we get? And then we're going to really be able to lock in on, okay, I kind of like this schedule. Where's the bye week? I think it's going to be an early bye this year. I told you that already. They've jerked us the last 2 years, gave us the last week you could possibly have a bye. I've got a feeling, like the Black Eyed Peas, that we're going to have a very early bye this year. But we'll see what happens. So we're going to dive into that schedule. I mean, get knee deep in that thing on Wednesday night. So that'll be Wednesday. Thursday, I'll have a podcast for you, and that'll be a special podcast. So make sure you tune in on Thursday for the podcast. Again, we'll be talking NBA. We'll have some more games that have taken place. Series will be in different stages at that point. Obviously, the schedule would have released, and we will talk about all the teams in the NFL schedule at that point, not just the Commanders. So we'll expand that conversation and kind of talk about the teams in the division, all of that good stuff. And we'll chop up the schedule into divisions, kind of talk about the primetime schedule, things that we like, don't like about the schedule, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be a pretty big show on Thursday night. So that's the layout for the week. Anything changes, I'll let you know. But in any event, let's get to the proceedings this evening. So first, let's talk about Brandon Coleman. I want to start with Brandon Coleman because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about Dan Quinn and his press conference. So let's talk about Brandon Coleman. So we had heard from most of the big-time draft picks, and that was the day one and day two guys, right? We had heard from them. Post-practice day one of Rookie Minis, right? Jaden Daniels, Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, and we also heard from Mikey Sane was still. So I was like, where's Brandon Coleman? Right? He's a part of this group. And we later find out why we didn't hear from Johnny Newton, the second round pick. We'll talk about that, here in a bit. But it was good to hear from Brandon Coleman. Boy, I'm so impressed with these rookies this year. Like, not to say that in past years I wasn't impressed with the rookie class and that those guys didn't come in, but there's a different energy permeating the building right now. And I've said this already. It starts with the staff. It starts from the top. Everything that you see with an organization starts from the top, which is why we've been awful for the last 2 decades plus, because we've been rotten from the top. So if you're rotten at the top, everything underneath it is going to be full of shit. Okay, and no good. So we weren't good as an organization in the front office. We had terrible ownership. Our front office was trash. The coaching staff was I'm gonna be kind here. It was an average staff. I'm being nice. It probably was below average, but we're gonna call it average, right? Why kick a man when he's down? So it was an average staff, and then the players kind of, fed off of everything else that I just talked about. Bad ownership, poor front office, average staff, so you get average results. You could argue we got average players. Some would even say we got below average players, whatever the case may be. The energy is different. And I talked about that on Friday, heading into Saturday. The energy is just different. And he's another one of these dudes, man. Just there's this zest for football, right? And they told us the kind of players that they were going out seeking and trying to bring in here to set the culture. They wanted leaders. Coleman was a leader at TCU. He was a captain. They wanted guys that love the game of football, which I think, to me, I don't care what organization you're working for. I think it would be, if I were in charge, one of the prerequisites that you would have to have is I would have to be able to feel your love for football. You got to love it. It can't, unless you're Joker, right? And you don't love it, but you're so superior that you can get away with just treating it as a job, but because you're better than everybody else, it doesn't matter. Unless you're that guy, and there are not too many of those guys that exist, especially in the NFL. Maybe you can get away with it in the NBA, but in the NFL, you gotta love it, man. Because it's such a grind, more so than the NBA, right? I think baseball and basketball in particular, or baseball and football in particular, you gotta love it. You playing 162 games, you gotta love it. You gotta go through the minor leagues, not just one minor league system. You gotta go through 3 different minor leagues to get to the professionals. You gotta love it, right? Talking baseball. And in the NFL, it's a grind, bro. Unlike baseball that plays 162 games, unlike basketball that plays 82 of those things, right? You're playing 17 games. So there's all of this practice, all of this buildup, all of this training and conditioning to lead up to 1 game a week. That's it. You get 1 chance to show all the shit you've been working on. Like most people will tell you, I live for the games, right? And practice is cool. Preparation is great. It puts you in a position where the game should be easy if you're putting yourself through the ringer, practicing and preparing and working out. I mean, the game should be easy. But most people enjoy the game, right? When greats retire, a lot of times, when Brett Favre retired and some of the great quarterbacks, they said, look, I still want to play. I just don't want to do the other shit. The meetings, the training camp. If I could just play on Sundays, I'd play for another 5 to 10 years. It's a grind, this football thing is. So you got to love it. Brandon Coleman sounds just like the rest of these guys. He sounds like he loves it. And when I listened to him, it was only one time I stopped him, like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Like, and I get where he was going. He said, and it was, in no certain terms. I'm paraphrasing here. But he was like, I want to help in any way, whether that's starting at, tackle, guard, or backing up. And then he called himself. He's like, or backing up. And he was like, or any capacity that they need. We don't want you to be a backup, bro. I know there are some in this fan base that are advocating that this team go out and they add someone. And if that is the case, and if they feel the need to do that, so be it. But I love what Dan Quinn said. We're going to get to that. But for Brandon Coleman, just put your best foot forward every day, bro. Continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to get comfortable in the playbook, continue to be good at both positions, guard and tackle, and we'll figure out the rest later. Just get better every single day. And essentially, that's what he said. I'm just taking all of this in. He talked about O-line Bobby Johnson and how, he was hands-on along with Cliff Kingsbury. He's like, these guys, and we've seen that. We've seen, clips of practice. Some of you are actually watching the practice on the team website, and good for them on the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. They're doing a great job of covering the team. And if you want to indulge in that, knock yourself out. But you're seeing the hands-on approach. I talked about this on the show that I released on Saturday, that Cliff Kingsbury is very hands-on, right? I think I talked about it. I'm not sure if I did or not. Feel like I did, but I may not have. But Cliff Kingsbury is very hands-on. And I know I talked about this at some point last week where I said something to the effect of, you can tell that he really wants to coach offense. And I brought up Chip Kelly, and I said, you saw what happened with Chip Kelly. This man was running the UCLA program. He has been a head coach. I can't tell you the last time Chip Kelly wasn't a head coach, going all the way back to, I think, New Hampshire, right? This guy's been a head coach forever. New Hampshire, and then Oregon, and then, Philadelphia Eagles, and then the 49ers, and then UCLA. He's been a head coach forever. This man took an offensive coordinator job because he just wants to coach offense. He just wants to have fun. Cliff Kingsbury just wants to have fun, and you can see that energy, that zest for the game coming out of him when he's hands-on with Jaden Daniels, hands-on with the offensive line. And, Brandon Coleman talked about, how hands-on he and O-line Bobby Johnson have been, and it's made his experience that much more enjoyable to this point. And he's talked about the energy that they've shown at practice, and, all of that stuff that they're doing, getting, used to his teammates and learning with all those guys. Remember, all these guys are rookies. All these guys are young, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 guys that, have an exception that are able to come out and work with the rookies. Most of these guys, this is their first experience in the NFL, right? So they don't know any better. They're just here trying to, figure out what it's like. They won't really have their welcome to the NFL moment until the veterans show up and they start working those guys in, and then they really get to see what it's like, right? This is not a good, opportunity for them to really gauge how good these guys are, because they're playing against guys that, this is like Senior Bowl practice, essentially. That's what this probably feels like to a lot of guys. It won't get serious. It won't feel like the NFL until the veterans show up. So Coleman strikes me as a guy that's going to come in here. He's going to work hard. He's going to put his best foot forward. I've already said this. I think he's going to be our starting left tackle when the season starts. I think this kid's got what it takes to get it done. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got the length for the position. And I think it's only a matter of time before he showcases that. And again, and I said this already, and we anybody that knows, right? I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. These OTAs, these mini camps, whether it's rookie, whether the veterans are there, it doesn't matter. You're not going to glean anything from the O-line or the D-line now. This is just not their time, okay? This is when you fine-tune the technique. This is when you work on footwork, hand placement, getting out of your stance, double teaming and getting to the second level, getting your footwork together for that. This is the time you do those things, right? This is when you get the nuances of your game. This is when you, really fine-tune, the technical aspect of being an offensive or defensive lineman, the hand usage, things of that nature. You're getting the details of the playbook for these guys because they're all rookies, so they're brand new to this. So they're getting the details of the playbook or at least concepts, right? Things of that nature. This is what this time is for. But with wide receivers and DBs, quarterback, you're doing those 7-on-7 drills, you can actually see guys going out making plays. The skill guys, they don't get days off because you don't need pads to see a guy making a play. Who can or who can't get it done? You don't need pads for that when you're a skill guy, right? Specifically the receivers and DBs. Running backs, yeah, you need the pads on. Tight ends, yeah, you need the pads on. You can see if a tight end's an athlete, if he's going to be able to separate at the next level, if he's got really good hands, if he can catch in traffic, all of that stuff. But blocking-wise, physicality, all of that stuff, you're not going to know with running backs, with tight ends, with the offensive line, with the D-line until the pads come on, right? So, talking about a guy like Brandon Coleman right now is an exercise in futility almost, because you're really not going to glean too much from any of these OTAs. But what I can tell you is this guy's full of life. He loves the game. And I think he's going to be an excellent addition to this football team. So anyway, Let's get to Dan Quinn, because he caused quite a stir over the weekend with his shirt, first and foremost. So if you haven't seen the shirt, he wore a Commanders shirt. So it was the standard Commanders shirt with the Commanders W, right? Standard Commanders font, everything. It was kind of like a faded look. The W, the line, Commanders. But his had one little extra added tweak to it, if you will. And it made a big difference. He had the Redskin, the Indian feathers that are traditional with and synonymous with the old Redskins logo, right? The two feathers that we would always see on the Chief. They were perched over the W on the Washington, for the W logo. So those two feathers there got a lot of people excited. And it was all the buzz, right? I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, shit. Look at Dan Quinn. But it didn't take away from what was being said, right? Like, that's cool. I go back to one of the few things that Ronald Rivera left us that was actually useful, right? And one of the most useful things Ronald Rivera left us was interesting versus important. The shirt was interesting, but the words coming out of his mouth, that's what was important. So many people got lost in the shirt and they lost their damn minds and they confused the two, right? I'm sitting there watching this thing and I'm watching the comments and nobody's asking or talking about anything he's saying. All they're talking about is the damn shirt. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, right? You like it, go buy one, right? But I'm more concerned about what he's talking about with Johnny Newton. I'm more concerned about what he's talking about with Brandon Coleman. I'm more interested in this bags drill that they do at the beginning of practice and what that entails and what's the idea behind that. He talked about Cornelius Lucas in the starting tackle position. He talked about Braden Daniels briefly. This is the shit that I'm interested in. Anyway, so let's talk about the shirt first. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the shirt. It is a big deal, right? It's important. It's interesting. It's not important, but it was a big deal because it got a lot of the fan base riled up. So again, if you haven't seen the shirt, I put it in the thumbnail of this video. And you've seen it a million times already circulating social media since he wore it. I've seen a million articles written. Pro Football Talk, they love talking about the Commanders. They can't keep our name out of their mouth. So anytime we give them any kind of fodder, they're going to run with it. So they talked about it. It was everywhere. Needless to say. So what is the significance to me of what Dan Quinn did? So first and foremost, here's what I think. Shout out to Dan Quinn first, because to me, that he made a statement by wearing that shirt. First of all, that was not a team sanctioned shirt. They did not okay nor approve of him wearing that shirt. You cannot buy that shirt on the team website. It is not sold as a part of team apparel or merch. That is an independent shirt that is sold outside of anything under the Washington Commanders umbrella. So somebody sent him that shirt. Somehow he got his hands on that shirt, thought it was a cool shirt. He decided to wear it. But he didn't just wear it because he thought it was a cool shirt. Okay, Dan Quinn is much smarter than that. There was intentionality with him wearing that shirt and why he did it. He didn't do that because, oh my God, and I saw so many fans out there. Bless your hearts, too. Let me talk to those fans for just a split second. I don't want to waste a lot of time talking to these fans because I hurt for you, the fans that still are holding out hope that one day the name is coming back. Let me be as clear as I've been very clear on this, but let me be as clear as I can possibly be. The Redskins name is never, ever, all caps. And unlike Dan Snyder, who used the all caps phrase and then went back and did the thing that he said you could print it in all caps, unlike that, I'm telling you that the Washington Redskins name and likeness and imagery is never coming back. Ever. So for those fans that got excited, oh my God, he's foreshadowing. He's telling us they're going to bring. No, you're reading way too much into this. He's not telling you any goddamn thing in regards to the team name, which they've already shut down, right? Before that rumor could even get started, they shut that shit down with the quickness. Okay, they swiftly said, hey, we ain't changing the name. Stop asking. Okay, stop asking that shit. We ain't changing the name right now. I still think they're going to change the name eventually. But we're not doing that shit right now. We're not going to play that game. So here's the importance of the shirt. Dan Quinn is a smart man. And one of the few things he's been able to do right away that has been refreshing for us as fans, but more importantly for the alumni that they so-called hold in high regard and feel like are a part of the family. They haven't treated them as such for the last 25 years under the Daniel Snyder regime. Well, that has changed in just a short 3 months or so with the whole Darryl Green situation, them, going to retire his number, the wallpaper they put up around the facility with Darryl Green, right? Them inviting back guys like John Riggins and making it a safe space for those alumni who didn't feel comfortable coming back here, who were never going to come back here as long as Daniel Snyder owned this team because they did not feel welcomed. They did not feel the love. Well, in just a short 3 months since Adam Peters, but more importantly, Dan Quinn, because I think he's been spearheading a lot of this, along with new owner Josh Harris and company, they've brought back in those former players, those former Redskin players, those greats that led to those 3 Lombardis. They've brought all of those guys back, and they've welcomed them with open arms, and they've made them feel welcome, and they've told them, hey, we can't make up for lost time, right? We can't sit here and begin to apologize for the damage done with the relationship between you and the organization from the last group. But what we can do is from this point forward into the future, we're going to make sure that your part of this organization's history isn't lost and that you're a part of this organization moving forward. And that people don't forget about your contribution to this organization and why it's such a proud and storied franchise. It's because of guys like you who have paved the way for the new Washington Redskins, now Commanders. And that is a big thing, right? And as fans like myself and even the older ones, probably even more so, that got to watch Riggins, that got to watch, guys like Marshall Wilbur and Charles Mann, right? I got a lot of those guys on the back end of their careers. I didn't get to see prime Dexter Manley. I didn't get to see prime Charles Mann. So for all of those people who got to see those players in their prime, seeing those guys come back and welcome with open arms, Riggo, et cetera, that's a big deal. And Quinn understood that. Unlike Rivera, who came here and tried to sell us on the fact that he understood the assignment, right? He came here talking about how it was in 1985. F 1985. It ain't 85 no more. Okay? Hell, you keep talking about RFK. This ain't RFK. It was FedEx Field. And it was a dump. And it was nothing like RFK. And you tried to get as far away from Redskins as you possibly could because you were a politically correct guy. And that's fine. I'll never tell somebody to be something that they're not. But you came in here like you understood the assignment, but you really didn't. You were remembering yesteryear very fondly, and that's cool. You were waxing poetically about what it was like to come here 30 years ago 35 years ago. That's cool. But that shit don't mean nothing to fans like myself. We want to see action now, and we never saw that from Rivera. We seeing that shit from Dan Quinn, and this is a great example of that. Quinn understood the assignment. He didn't have to do this. He did this shit, one, for the fans. You don't think this shit endeared him to millions of Washington Redskin fans? Forget Commanders fans. The ones that were dormant. The ones that were like, I'm not buying any team apparel. I don't want anything to do with this team. The ones that won't show up until September when the games start. He woke their asses up. Even if it's only for a weekend. One weekend in May, they got up, their ears perked up, and they were listening intently. So he spoke to them. He spoke to fans like myself, who always like to see the old imagery, just so you don't forget what the history is of this organization. They can't erase what we were, right? You remember Nutso, right? You remember Above the Rim? And he kept saying, hey, you remember Bernie Mac's character? I can't remember his damn name. The homeless character he played on Above the Rim. And he kept telling, shit, what was my man's name? Leon. What was Leon's character name? Why am I blanking on his damn name? He said, they can't erase what we were. They can't erase what we were. We were champions. Flip. That was his name. Flip. Thank you, Face Vengeance. Flip. He kept telling them, they can't erase what we were. They trying to erase what we were. You can't erase the Redskins' history. We are the Redskins. We will always be the Redskins. Even if we're not called Redskins anymore, we will always be Redskins. And people will always call us. People that I talk to this day, they don't even acknowledge Commanders. Man, what the Skins going to do this year, man? I hear that shit more than Commanders. We will always be Skins, Redskins, some shit connected to Redskins. And I'm okay with that. I don't run from that. So I always like to see imagery that connects us, which is why I think a lot of us are like, bro, you didn't even have to do, and I get it. It's when you going through this whole rebrand, you want to start new with a blank slate. I get that too. But you didn't have to change the jerseys. You really didn't. You could have just changed the helmets, left the jerseys alone. I thought the rebrand with the football team, the jerseys, you could have left it just like with Washington on the front. You could have left it just like that. And we would have been just fine with the old jerseys, with the old look, with a different helmet, and we would have kept it pushing. And I think there would have been less pushback had they just left the damn jerseys and the color scheme alone. If you wanted to add a black jersey in there as an alternate because of this new look and this rebrand, fine. I think most fans would have been okay with that. They went too far when they started effing around with the jerseys. The burgundy isn't even the same color, but we don't need to go down that road. But that's the conversation that Dan Quinn, kind of started when he wore the shirt. But more importantly, he did it for us as fans. That was number one. That shit brought a warmth to all of our hearts, right? A big smile on our face. When we saw that shirt, we said, look at Dan Quinn. How can you not love this guy? How can you not love this guy? He knew what he was doing. He executed it beautifully. He knew the assignment and he crushed it. But more importantly, he did that for the alumni. He did that for the alumni. He did that for the alumni, the fans, to let them know you've always got a place here and there will always be a connection here with this group to you, yesteryear, the past, and what you've built. This doesn't exist without y'all, and I just want y'all to know there will always be a connection to our past, to our history, to our heritage as an organization. They can't erase what we were. Although they've tried, they can't erase what we were. Quinn let them know that with that shirt. He made a statement. A loud one. Kudos to Dan Quinn. That shirt has nothing to do with nothing. They ain't bringing the name back. They ain't bringing the imagery back. This ain't got nothing to do with future plans of this organization. That was just Dan Quinn making sure the fan base and the alumni knew, hey, I F's with y'all. I get it. And there will always be a connection to the past. Just in case y'all don't know where I stand, just know, if it were up to me, we'd still be the Redskins. He didn't even have to say it. The shirt said enough. He's won over a huge portion of the fan base that might not have rocked with him or was on the fence or who were dormant. He woke their ass up, and they're now Dan Quinn fans. How can you not love that? And that's just pure brilliance on the part of Dan Quinn. Now, I will tell you, I guarantee you the organization slapped it. They didn't slap him on the wrist. I guarantee you the powers that be, okay, the marketing side of things, ownership probably like, all right, I got it. Okay, great move. You won over a huge portion of the fan base. They loved it. They ate it up. Don't do that shit again. Okay, because now you got us answering questions and you got us talking about shit that we really don't want to be talking about. Like, we want to bury the name conversation. You brought that shit back to the forefront. Right? We're not trying to deal with that. So from now on, let's just kind of keep it to standard Washington Commanders apparel. I'll be shocked if I see Dan Quinn show up with anything else other than team-sanctioned apparel moving forward. Okay? I don't think we'll see any more twin feathers rolling up on a hat or on a shirt. I don't think we're going to see any of that moving forward. Just be W's, the standard Washington Commanders crest, the W logo, or, Commanders, or some iteration of that moving forward. Statement made, though. It's no different than when you're in court and a lawyer says some shit out loud and, there's an objection made by the other side and the judge says, sustained. Hey, one more outburst like that from you and I will hold you in contempt of this courtroom. Like, hey, jury members, please, disregard the last statement from, the prosecution or the defendant, the defense. Yeah, you can tell them to forget about that shit, throw it out. They already heard it. They can't unhear that shit. It's already been said. Damage done, right? Whether Drake is a pedophile or not, it's out there. It's already been said. Can't do anything about it now, right? It's in the atmosphere. Whether you are guilty of this or not, the perception is out there. Dan Quinn made his statement, loved it, but mission accomplished. But we move on, right? So let's get to what he had to say, because the shirt was interesting, but what he said was important, right? So he started out by talking about Jaden Daniels and how impressed he was with Daniels throughout these, the first day of minicamp, but going into day 2, how impressed he was with him and just his ability to comprehend what was going on, to be able to know enough to get other guys lined up. He talked about, hey, it's one thing to know your job. It's another thing to know everybody else's job, to be able to get everybody lined up correctly, get the formations right, get the shifts and the motions correct, all of that good stuff, right? So he talked about kind of showing the command of not just the offense. And he doesn't have command of the offense to this point, but he's got command of the concepts, command of what other guys are supposed to be doing, not just himself, which is imperative for a quarterback. The only position on the field that has to know what everybody else is doing is the quarterback. Now, you can take it upon yourself as a linebacker to know what everybody else's responsibility is on defense as you're getting everybody lined up if you're the guy with the green dot. But you don't have to know what the safety's responsibility is. You just need to know where that safety needs to be lining up pre-snap, right? You don't care about what's going on the back end. That's not your responsibility. You're more concerned about what's going on in the front seven. The quarterback has to know what every single individual is doing on the field, because every single player on offense impacts the quarterback and his performance from a snap-to-snap basis. The guy furthest away from the huddle, the guy furthest away from the football, if he lines up incorrectly on the ball when he's supposed to be off the ball or vice versa, that play is null and void. You just got a penalty. So even the guy that doesn't have anything to do, this play is going away from the player on the backside of a run. He's away from the action, has nothing to do with it. He's 15 yards away from what's going on. If he lines up incorrectly, this play doesn't count. And we're moving backwards in the wrong direction. So you as a quarterback have to make sure everybody's lined up correctly, right? So he talked about Jaden Daniels and his ability to just be a leader, kind of showing those leadership qualities already. And he's so impressed with that. And everything we've heard from Jaden Daniels kind of corroborates that. Like, we got leadership vibes and qualities from him right away, and just listening to him speak, you know, from thanking Tress Wade for the opportunity to bless the number 5 to, you know, talking about his teammates and really just, you know, kind of soaking in everything, but also giving, you know, a lot of credit to his teammates and things of that nature. And the coaching staff talked about Cliff Kingsbury being really hands-on with him, things of that nature. So, you know, Quinn talked about that as well with Jaden Daniels. I think the biggest thing that came out of the presser, though, was the Johnny Newton, you know, conversation, because a lot of us were wondering, why is Johnny Newton in a boot, right? If you're watching practice, you see 95 off on the side in a walking boot, and you're like, I thought the foot was healthy now, though, right? So Quinn said, okay, you know, Nicky Javala kind of brought it up, and he's like, I'm glad you brought it up. I meant to address this at the top of the press conference. So Quinn then goes on to say, in no certain terms, that Johnny Newton sustained a very similar Jones fracture on his opposite foot. So if I'm not mistaken, it was the left foot during the offseason that he had surgery on that prevented him from performing at the Senior Bowl, or I don't know if he's a senior. I think he was a senior. And the combine, obviously, and at, you know, the Illinois Pro Day. And then he had a personal pro day like right before the draft. So he was healthy, clearly enough to do that. And so we were all expecting him to be ready to go for rookie minis. Then you get to rookie minis, the guy's in a walking boot. It didn't dawn on me that it was the opposite foot. I just said, damn, the foot still ain't healed? I thought it was already healed. So Quinn is like, yeah, the foot that he had the surgery on in January, that foot's fine. And that one's ready to go. It's the other foot, you know. In examining his left foot, is while you're there, you're going to check on everything. And they found a similar fracture in his right foot. So they said, well, instead of waiting, because just like he fractured his foot during the season, he played through it. He could play through that fracture, but why would you do that you're in the offseason and you've discovered it early enough to where you can fix it now and he can be perfectly healthy in his rookie season? What we don't want him to do is be compromised in his rookie season and have him be like the Darian Mathis was as a second-round pick, unavailable in his rookie season, and a guy that is essentially wasted a year of football, right? You don't want that. So them discovering this in the timely manner that they did put them in a position to have him have the surgery. He had the surgery today, okay? And so that surgery is done. And when he said it, sounds like to me that they had no idea that he had this injury when they drafted him, right? The second injury. I don't think that's why he didn't get drafted in the first round. We've already had this conversation. He didn't get drafted in the first round because 8 offensive tackles and 6 quarterbacks went in the first round. And there wasn't a defensive player taken until the 15th pick in the draft. That's why he did not get selected in the first round. Okay, he was always a fringe first round pick, someone that we thought would go somewhere in the 20s or the late 30s or early 30s, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, that run on tackles late on the offensive lineman, and then that I think we saw some corners go late too. That pushed him out of the first round, which is fine. Their loss, our gain. Some people overreacted. Oh my God, the second round jinx is back. Yada yada yada. My guy Derek B. Shout out to my guy Derek B. Who said AP is a genius. He sacrificed our first second round pick, being Johnny Newton, for the other two so that they can be Pro Bowl All-Pro players, right? We can't have all three of them be nice. And the curse has to exist. So somebody had to take the weight. Who's going to take the weight? As a wise man once asked, who's going to take the weight? And Derek B says that man is none other than Johnny Newton. I disagree. And it's different. And this is not the old regime. And this is not, there's no curse that's been lifted. All curses that existed prior to 2020, all curses that existed prior to 2023 are gone. All right. The minute Daniel Snyder exited stage left, all the curses left with him. So there's no second round curse anymore. We're good now. I firmly believe this. So it sucks that he's hurt, but I started doing the math. So they discovered this post-draft, so they did not know this. Other teams, I don't think, knew this either, and I don't think this is why he fell. He just fell because of how the board went. But I did the math. So if we're assuming, and you know what they say about assuming, right? So I don't necessarily want to do that, but I'm going to do it. He's a young man. I like to think he can bounce back. As long as there are no setbacks, everything goes the way that it's supposed to. He had his first surgery in January. He was ready to perform prior to the draft, let's say mid-April, early to mid-April, had a pro day, a personal pro day. So 3 months later, he was fully healthy, ready to go, cleared for football movements and activity. Let's just assume that 3 month time frame exists again. He has the surgery in early to mid-May. We'll call it early May. If 3 months is that time frame, he should be ready for physical activity to get back out on the field, be 100% somewhere in that early to mid-August range. So he'll still have time to get some practice under his belt, get out there for some preseason ball, and be ready to contribute when September rolls around. So I don't think this is going to be as big of a setback. Yeah, he's going to miss mini camps, and he won't be, getting into the kind of shape that you would like him to be getting into. That's the only thing that's going to hurt him. Conditioning-wise, he won't be ready right out of the gate. It'll take some time for them to ramp him up, get him where he needs to be. But from a production standpoint, barring any setbacks, he should be fine come the start of the regular season. He should be ready to rock and roll sometime in August. If that timeline from the first Jones fracture that he had surgery on and the recovery process that we saw, if that timeline holds up, I surmise that he'll be ready sometime in mid-August. So we should be fine. No worries there. So obviously that was a big topic of conversation, and that was a big piece of news. He was asked about Braden Daniels, was Dan Quinn. That was really interesting. So he wasn't at this rookie minicamp, and there were some guys that were eligible for rookie minicamp, and they were there. So the prevailing thought was, why wasn't Braden Daniels here? Like, he didn't play last year. Was he not eligible? And Dan Quinn cleared that up. And he essentially said that he was not eligible to be at the rookie minicamps. For whatever reason, he didn't play a single snap. He didn't even make the roster. He was on IR. So most people just thought, naturally, if guys like Kaz Allen and Mason Brooks were able to be at this rookie minicamp, Why isn't a guy like Braden Daniels? Now, one could argue those are two undrafted free agents, and I think that's what it had more to do with than anything else. Those were two undrafted free agents that were on the practice squad. Braden Daniels was on the official squad and then placed on IR, and he was a draft pick. So the rights that the team owns are totally different from a drafted guy versus two undrafted players. So I guess the rules are different for that as well. That's my guess, and that's essentially what Dan Quinn was saying. But he's like, look, we haven't had a chance to really take a look at these dudes. All we can see is, you know, the work that they're putting in, and that they're coming in here, that they're working hard, that they're at the facility, they're doing the necessary things and taking the necessary steps to prepare themselves. But with the offensive line, we really not going to know what these guys are capable of. And this is a point I've been trying to make along the offensive line, specifically with guys like Ricky Stromberg and Braden Daniels, two draft picks from a season ago on the offensive line. We have no idea what those guys are going to be able to contribute this year. All of you are so fixated on we need help on the offensive line. We don't have this and we don't have that. And what are we going to do? People were freaking out when they saw that the Patriots potentially might have to start a rookie left guard and left tackle. Who gives a shit? These guys got to play eventually. What if they're really good in their rookie season? Everybody just assumes rookies can't play. Why can't a rookie come in and play? I don't understand this fear, right? Scared money don't make money. You can't be afraid to put a rookie out there. Well, what the hell did you draft him for if you're scared to put him on the field? If he's shown you enough, and I love Dan Quinn's answer when he talked about Brandon Coleman and he talked about Cornelius Lucas. I think it's the Cornelius Lucas answer. We'll get to that one in a second. Let's talk about Brandon Coleman. He talked about Coleman, whether he's a guard or a tackle, and, you know, Dan Quinn, you know, DQ kind of steered clear of that. Like, look, we don't know what the kid's going to be. We like him as a tackle, but we don't know what he's ultimately going to be. You know, all we want to do is we want to coach these players up the best that we can, get them prepared, get them as knowledgeable with the playbook, work on their technique and the nuances of what we're going to ask them to do, and get the subtleties of what their position entails down pat. And then we'll worry about all of that stuff once we get the pads on, especially on the offensive line, right? But he's like, Coleman, just like the rest of these rookies, he's come in here and he's done a really good job so far. Great. Talked about the start to practice, this whole bags drill thing that we've seen, where they're feverishly running back and forth. Coaches are jumping up and down. There's this big circle that they create around the players, and the players are racing back and forth in like 10-yard increments or whatever, racing back and forth. And, you know, a lot of excitement, a lot of jumping up, a lot of energy. And I talked about this on the last video when I said, this is Dan Quinn's signature, right? This is his calling card, energy. We saw it from day one, his introductory press conference, full of juice, full of energy. We've watched him on the commander's log. Every time we've seen this guy, energy, energy, energy. Even his press conference, tons of energy. Comes out of the gate, and you don't have to cuss to bring energy, but he told us in his introductory press, I like to swear. So just prepare yourself. I got a nasty mouth, period, or pause. That's essentially what he told us. So get used to me swearing. So he comes out of the gate. And he's like, yo, we want to grab this shit, like really squeeze it, take advantage of this. I'm really just embracing this time with these young fellas, soaking up the energy out there, and reciprocating that. Bringing the juice every day. Those guys are reciprocating that energy, and I'm giving it right back to them. And I'm really excited about what we're doing right now, right? As fans, we got the big picture, right? We're taking a look at it from a macro perspective. Like, hey, what you going to do at left tackle? Dan Quinn can't worry about that, and that's going to take us to the Cornelius Lucas conversation. So somebody brought up the conversation around Cornelius Lucas, and I really think it was Ben Standig, right? And he said something to the effect of, we've never seen Cornelius Lucas in this league as a starter. And I talked about this briefly earlier this offseason. Like, so many people are freaking out about Cornelius Lucas because he's never actually been a starter in this league. He's been an exceptional swing tackle, one guy that we could rely on when his number was called throughout this process. We knew when 78 hit the field, he was going to keep things for the most part nice and quiet and nice and tidy on his side of the field. We weren't going to hear his name. We're going to be a ton of penalties. He was going to make us forget that he was even in the game, which is what you want from an offensive lineman, right? But he's always been a spot duty guy. If we needed him for 4 weeks, he'd show up, be present, take care of business, and then he'd go back to the bench, right? It's never been, hey, we going into the season with Cole Luke as the starting tackle. So Ben Stanek pretty much said he's never been a starter before. What gives you the confidence that this man who's been a spot starter and a swing tackle for the most part his entire career, what gives you the confidence that he's able to step in and get the job done? And Dan Quinn's like, see, let me explain this to y'all. We don't need Cornelius Lucas to prove he's a starter right now. We're not interested in him proving that in May. We got all this time from now until the start of the season to figure out who the best 5 offensive linemen are. Who are the guys that give us the best chance? Right now, we think we got 2 guys essentially penciled in as starters at center and right guard. Now, they're not going to confirm that, but we're no dummies. We know Sam Cosmi played the best of anybody on the offensive line last year. And we know they signed Tyler Biadasz to a 3-year deal, so he's starting at center. So those 2 spots feel like they're spoken for. We have no clue what they're going to do at left guard or left tackle. We have no clue if they're going to keep Andrew Wiley at right tackle or if they're going to start somebody else at right tackle, right? We have no idea what they're going to do. So 3/5 of the offensive line feel like they're up for grabs right now. They got a bunch of pieces that they can mix and match to figure out who gives you the best opportunity. So they'll figure those things out. But he said, we don't have to worry about that right now. Y'all want to talk about stuff that's 3-4 months down the road. I'm living in today, another one of these Rivera-isms, you know, that he got from somebody else, that person got from somebody else. Be where your feet are. Like, he's in the moment right now. I'm coaching these rookies right now. I'm not worried about what Cornelius Lucas can or can't do. We'll figure that out when the pads come on in late July, into August, and we'll figure out who gives us the best chance at left tackle, left guard, right guard, center, and we'll put those 5 guys on the field, and we'll have our starting offensive line, and then we'll move on from there, right? I love that answer because so many people want to get caught up in you need to do this, you need to do that, this guy's still available on the offensive line, you should go get this guy. We might have the answers in-house. I keep talking about this. People keep dismissing me because the offensive line has been bad for the last 2 years. This is a different group. The coaching staff is different. Is O-line Bobby Johnson better? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Are these players better? I don't know. We'll see. One thing I'm always going to be a proponent of is giving guys an opportunity to show that they can before we say they can't. Everybody wants this guy. We can't start a rookie 3rd-round pick at time. Why not? Why can't you? I'm not telling you it's ideal. I'm not telling you that's the thing that you want to do. That's not the way you want to live in this league. But it's not impossible. Had we drafted Brandon Coleman in the 1st round, had we gotten one of those 6 tackles, would you be more comfortable? Yes, you would. That's you guys. A lot of people play that draft pick game all the time. They did the shit with Sam Howell, right? He was a 5th-round pick for a reason. Bullshit. I'm sticking by that. Samson, I stick by my story. Okay? I'm sticking to my shit. I don't give a damn that he was a 5th-round pick. Better coaching. Sam's still here, and he would have shown that he was a baller. Doesn't matter where you're drafted. If you can play, you can play. If Coleman was a 1st-round pick, we wouldn't be having this conversation with most of y'all. But because he's a 3rd-round pick, And there's conversations about whether he's a guard or a tackle, because in college, that's what happens a lot of times, is if we've got injuries, they take their best players and they move those guys around because they know that guy can perform at multiple positions. You can't take a guy that can't play guard, but he can play tackle and put him at guard. But I know I can take my tackle and put him at guard and he's going to play. Just like they did with Trent Williams. Remember that Giants game? You could have said, Trent Williams, one of the best left tackles in the game. Don't move him. Well, they had to because Ty and Seki couldn't play guard. So you had to move him inside and put Ty and Seki at tackle because Trent Williams can play guard. He's athletically gifted enough to play guard. So you kick him inside and you put the guy that can't play tackle or can't play guard, you put him at tackle. That's what they did with Brandon Coleman. We got a guy that can play tackle. We don't have another guy that can play guard. So we'll take our best tackle. We'll put him at guard because we know he can get the job done. And he got knocked for that. Yeah, he's 6'4". Okay, fine. He's not 6'6". At the tackle position. He's still got long arms. The only reason people care about height is because height is usually synonymous with length of arms. If you're a short guy, you probably have shorter arms. That's usually how that works. It's not because you have to be 6'6" as a tackle. That doesn't matter. It's usually because if you're 6'6", that probably comes equipped with 35-inch arms, 34.5-inch arms. That's why they want you 6'6". If you're 6'4", that probably means you got 32.5-inch arms. You got 32-inch arms. I can't do anything with that at the tackle position. This man has 34 and 5/8-inch arms. So essentially, he's got 35-inch arms. We shouldn't be talking about his height. Who cares that he's 6'4"? The only reason people talk about height is because of arm length. Well, he's got long arms. So let's put that discussion to bed. So I'm looking forward to Brandon Coleman, seeing what he can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what Cornelius Lucas can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what Braden Daniels can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ricky Stromberg can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what, all of these guys that they brought in here can do, to see what best five we can put on the field. Nick Allegretti, looking forward to seeing what he can do. And hell, if Andrew Wiley has to start at right tackle, so be it. I already told you that shit ain't happening on my watch, and I'm giving out a 00 if he starts at right tackle because I don't see the shit happening. But we'll see what happens with Andrew Wiley, right? I'm going to trust, and I've told you guys this every step of the way. Don't always have to agree with the moves that they make, but I'm going to trust them every step of the way. And if they tell me in late August that, they'll tell us way before that, because in the preseason, you're going to know who the starting five is. When they put Jaden Daniels on the field, they're going to put their best 5 offensive linemen that they think they have at that time in front of him. They're not going to put him out there with guys that they think are a liability, right? So if we get to that first preseason game, and we'll know probably before that, because the beat reporters will be telling us who the starting 5 guys are when they get to practice, when the first team offense is out there. They'll tell us from right to left, from left to right, who the 5 guys are out there. And if Andrew Wiley is one of those 5 and he's at right tackle and they deem him to be the best right tackle that we can currently put on the football field, so be it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Last thing that he said at the presser that I thought was of note pertained to the wide receivers. And he talked about, he was asked about Luke McCaffrey. And he pretty much made it a broader conversation about the receivers in general. He said, this has been one of the better groups that he's been around in terms of rookies. Guys have been catching the football. They've been running crisp routes. They don't look like deer in a headlight. They've come out and they've kind of carried themselves like veterans. And he's been really impressed with those guys. And so obviously it's rookie on rookie violence right now. So you should look good out there. When the veterans show up, that's always my gauge, is I expect you to go out there and look sharp right now against Air and against other rookies. The real test will come when the veterans show up And you got to do that shit against guys that have been in the league 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Excuse me, they're veterans. They know tricks of the trade, and they're not going for none of that monkey business. So we'll see. But the early returns are in, and the early results, excuse me, are in, and so far, so good. So far, so good. So I mentioned this at the top of the show, but real quick, I don't want to harp on this because I don't really get too caught up in things that don't have anything to do with the product on the field. One guy does, and the other guy doesn't really have anything to do with the product on the field. So I don't like to get caught up in this stuff because at the end of the day, we shouldn't know anybody in the scouting department's name for the most part. Unless you heading up the scouting department. We shouldn't know your name, right? We shouldn't care that much because at the end of the day, those guys have a job to do, and you're really not going to know exactly what it is they're doing and how they're going about their business. So it shouldn't be that important. But we've become so obsessed with every aspect of this sport, unlike any other. We've become so consumed with the day-to-day business and every single aspect of these teams to the point where we know people's names that we have no business knowing. One of those names is Malcolm Blacken, who was in charge of player development. And anytime you would see them fire up, Commanders 1, go get a first-round pick, you see this bald-headed black guy with glasses on, with a beard, and he'd be talking to that player, kind of prepping him, getting him ready for what is to come. That guy, his name was Malcolm Blacken, and he's been here forever. And you would hear guys like Doug Williams in particular talk about Malcolm Blacken and, some of the things that he's doing and the success he's had with some of these players. And he's been here a very long time. Now he's not. Adam Peters and company are moving on from him. And again, you're going to continue to see this as they continue to clean house, continue to bring in the guys that they feel like are going to make this thing as successful an organization as they can possibly make it. And so Malcolm Blacken is out. I didn't see that one coming. There are a number of changes that I anticipated coming. I don't think I saw that coming as one of them, but he's out. Now, this guy is not directly, connected to Malcolm Blacken. It's not like Malcolm Blacken is out and they hired, Jack Quagliarello to take his job, right? That's not what they did. But Jack Quagliarello was brought in here. Quagliarello. I knew I was going to get tongue-tied. Quagliarello. They brought him in from San Francisco, Jack Quagliarello. Pro scout. He was, again, more boots on the ground, area scout, started from the bottom, and he's worked his way up the ranks. And I think Adam Peters worked with him closely in San Francisco. Feels like this guy's ready for a promotion. He's bringing him on board with Washington. And we'll see what he's able to do here. And the more good scouts, the more, eyes that align with that of your general manager, the better we think it's going to be. So overall, interesting weekend. We're going to hear a little bit about the schedule tomorrow. You might even get a Commanders leak tomorrow. Just depends on who the team is, right? So just keep your eyes peeled tomorrow because you're going to start getting some leaks here and there. You'll definitely get them on Wednesday, right? And you'll know half of the schedule before 8 o'clock. But keep your eyes peeled as we get closer and closer. Wednesday night, 8 o'clock is when they'll officially release the schedules. You'll know the entire thing. But you're going to know 3, 4, 5, upwards of 6 games or so prior to the actual schedule release. So that'll be happening. And what we do know, based off of 2 games that have been leaked already, we know we're not playing the Philadelphia Eagles in week 1. We know we're not playing the Baltimore Ravens. And so you can start kind of doing, deductive reasoning, right? The Ravens are on our schedule. The Eagles are on our schedule. We're not playing either one of those teams in week 1. So that's all we know. We know we're not playing those teams. Didn't expect to play either one of those teams in week 1, but we know that. Thursday night, we'll get the kickoff. Eagles or Chiefs hosting the Ravens rematch of the AFC Championship game. And then Friday, which is rare. I don't think we've ever had a Thursday-Friday combo to kick off the season. Thursday, the kickoff, banner drops, Chiefs celebrate last year's Super Bowl championship, and they'll host the Baltimore Ravens. Friday, we go over to Brazil, where the Philadelphia Eagles will be taking on the Green Bay Packers in the first ever game from Brazil. So that's on Friday. So we'll be kind of keeping our ears peeled, eyes wide open tomorrow and into Wednesday as we see what happens with this Commanders schedule. But I'll tell you this much. I'll just say this, and I've given you little tidbits on what I think is going to happen with the schedule. So I've told you this already tonight, and I've said it in the past. I think we're going to have an earlier bye this season. I think our bye is going to be week 7 this year. It's going to be a relatively early bye, right? It's closer to the middle of the season. I wouldn't be shocked if our bye is like week 6, but I'm going to say 7. 7 feels safer to me. Week 7 bye for the Commanders this year, after having a week 14 bye each of the last 2 seasons, which is the latest bye a team can possibly have. It's almost like one final FU from the NFL as Snyder, finally, got out of our organization and got out of our lives. They just say, hey, one more on the way out, man. One final FU, one final middle finger to Dan Snyder and the Washington Commanders organization. I think we rid ourselves of all of that, and we get a regular, normal bye this year, right? I think our first game of the season is going to be on the road, okay? We've been at home, I want to say, each of the last 3 years. We start out at home a lot. Let's see. When was the last road game? Let's see if we can play the mental game. I like to do these things. I don't like to Google this shit. This is how you keep your mind sharp. So last season, week 1, home for Arizona. The year before that, 2022, home for the... Who are we playing in week 1 in 2022? Home for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 2021, home for the Chargers, right? That was Ryan Fitzpatrick. 2020, home for the Eagles. That was Ron Rivera's first game. We spotted them a 17-0 lead and hawked them down and won 27-17. 27 answered points. Sacked Carson Wentz like 8 times in that game. 2019, that was Jay Gruden's last year, and it was a murderer's row start to the season. Now, what was the first game that year? We were on the road, week 1, 2019. That was Terry McLaurin's rookie season, first game. Remember, he didn't play a single preseason game. They were hiding him. I think he had like a tailbone injury, and they were hiding him. And Terry comes out of nowhere week 1. Boom. Beats Ronald Darby over the top. 70-yard touchdown. Jumps up and does this shit right here, I think. He was open again and to start the third quarter, and Case Keenum missed him. He was like 5 yards behind the Eagles defense. He should have had 200 yards receiving in that first game of his career. So 2019 is the last time we had a road game. We're due. That was against the Eagles. Remember, what were we up in that game? What was the score? 14-0? We were on the Eagles, 14-3. Then Deshaun Jackson caught a bomb to end the first half and another bomb to start the second half. And just like that, the shit was over. We never responded after that. So, yes. Yes, Mr. Ron B. He said Vernon Davis hurdles a player for a touchdown. Yep. Right sideline, he catches a pass, jumps over a guy, hauls ass, takes off, scores a touchdown. We started off red hot. I was like, oh, shit. Jay Gruden and Case Keenum, who knew? That didn't last very long. that didn't last very long at all. but came out of the gates guns a-blazing that year against the Eagles. So that was the last road game we had, 2019. We're due for one. 4 straight years at home. So I think we're going to be on the road this year to start the season off. And I think we're going to have an early bye. And I've already said I think we're going to have 2 primetime games, obviously Thursday and Monday. We aren't Sunday night certified. Okay, we are not Sunday night certified yet. So they are not inviting us back until we prove that we're not ass. Because the last time they invited us to Sunday night, we made it was a shit show. We made a complete spectacle out of it, the situation. So they're not inviting us back until we prove that we're legit. So it'll be a Thursday and it'll be a Monday night game, I believe. 2 games on primetime. And one of them will probably be NFC East related. That's the guess, right? So we'll see what happens. Anyway. So let's get to the comment section so I can get y'all out of here. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope you and the family are doing well. Likewise. 3 questions. What are your expectations for Jahan Dotson with Daniels at quarterback? Question 2. With Johnny Newton's injury, do we seem cursed with the defensive tackle in the 2nd round? That's an easy one to answer for me. I get it, though. And 3, with Jared Goff's new contract outside of Mahomes, who are your top 5 QBs now? So let's take this in reverse order. We'll start with the 3rd one since that has nothing to do with the Commanders in particular. Top 5 quarterbacks. Just because he's being paid as a top 5 quarterback doesn't mean that. I already told you the next guy up is usually the highest paid guy. Now obviously there's going to be certain contingencies put in place, and there's still a pecking order, especially at quarterback. But Jared Goff is not a top 5 quarterback, but he got paid because he almost took the Detroit Lions to the Super Bowl. Good for him, right? If their defense didn't go to hell in a handbasket and guys could catch in that NFC Championship game, the Lions probably go to the Super Bowl. So good for Jared Goff. He felt like a guy that was a placeholder. When that deal was first executed, when Brad Holmes first came over from the Rams and became the Lions general manager, it felt like he reached back and grabbed Jared Goff only as a placeholder. And then when they drafted the kid from Tennessee in the 3rd round last year in the draft, it still felt like, okay, Goff is playing well, but it's a means to an end. No, Hendon Hooker at this pace will never see the field. He's more of an asset now, where you look at a team, that needs a quarterback, and you're hoping Hendon Hooker kills it in the preseason. Like you're hoping a New England Patriots somebody like they used to back in the day with Matt Castle and Ryan Mallett and all the quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo. They would always trot out in the preseason, fleece you, and get you to give up a 2nd round pick for one of these dudes. You're hoping Hendon Hooker does the same thing this preseason if you're the Detroit Lions. You're trying to showcase him because at this point, you're just trying to get your 3rd round pick back. He's never going to see the field. If Goff stays healthy, upright, and he keeps playing the way that he's playing, Hendon Hooker will never see the field. You want to get something for him, right? So anyway, I went off on a tangent. The top 5 hasn't changed. Still the same guys. Nothing's changed there because nobody has penetrated that group and played with the consistency that it takes to be in that discussion. I still see it as in no particular order, but we know Mahomes is 1. And then after that, you can do whatever you want to do. But it's still Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, and let me just make sure I didn't miss anybody. Mahomes, Burrow, Jackson, Allen, and let me make sure I get this 5th guy right. I don't want to miss anybody. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Who's the fifth guy? And then you can put them in whatever order you like. Let me go through the divisions real quick because I hate making lists on the fly because I always forget somebody. So the easiest way to make sure I don't do that is just to go through all the divisions. Nobody in the NFC East. NFC North. Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota. Nobody in that division. NFC South. Nobody in that division for sure. NFC West. Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, and Seahawks. Nobody in that division. Then you go to the AFC. AFC East. Already named Allen. Rodgers could still be in that conversation, but we didn't see this man play football for a whole year, essentially. If he's healthy, he's probably still in the top 5 discussion, right? Which is why you go with Rodgers, the Jets are a Super Bowl contender. Without him, they're not, right? That's the kind of impact a top 5 quarterback has. You take him off the roster, that team is irrelevant. You put him on the roster, and they got a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's what a top 5 quarterback does for a franchise. That's Aaron Rodgers. So right now, I'd say he's the placeholder unless there's somebody else that could take his spot. Say Aaron Rodgers probably completes that top 5 because I still think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL when healthy. AFC North, already named Jackson, already named Burrow. Nobody else in that division qualifies. AFC South, nobody in that division qualifies. But, we're keeping an eye on C.J. Stroud to see what he does as an encore from last year's, ridiculous rookie campaign. I think Trevor Lawrence took a step back last year, dealt with some injuries. We'll see if he can bounce back this year. And then AFC West, we already named Mahomes. Raiders don't have anybody. Chargers, Herbert is a guy that I always like to talk about. But he's not better than anybody that I named, including Aaron Rodgers. But he's probably on the outskirts. He'd probably be the first guy out of that group. And then you can start to fill in the blanks with guys, hovering around there, Hurts and whomever else you want to throw in that conversation. Knock yourself out. But I'd say that's the 5. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Rodgers is the top 5. And then Herbert would probably be the first guy in if you were to take one guy out. For me, personally. So, Johnny says, with Johnny Newton's injury, do we seem cursed at defensive tackle in the second round? No, we don't seem cursed. But I get it. I understand why that is a conversation. I told you what my guy Derek B said about AP, essentially Chef P sacrificing Newton as the second round sacrificial lamb so that the other 2, Mikey Sane was still and Ben Sinnott could shine, right? And not be under this quote unquote curse. There is no curse, okay? You specifically, narrowed the conversation down to defensive tackle, obviously for Darian Mathis and his situation in the second round and what he's been able to not do thus far in his career due to injury. I don't put Johnny Newton in that same conversation, nor is he in the same player, right? We've seen Johnny Newton play with this same injury and be effective. But Darian Mathis hasn't even really been on the field to even show what he's capable of in his first 2 seasons in the NFL. And so I get it. I get why the conversation is what it is. But at the same time, I can't subscribe to that. I'm not putting that on this new group, and I'm not putting that on these players. It's a different regime, different set of players, and I'm leaving the past in the past when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to be positive because that's my nature, right? To be positive and to give the benefit of the doubt when it's earned. And this group came in here and they've done nothing to make me feel like this is like before, right? Everything they've said, everything that they've done, their actions, their words, everything that we've seen to this point says, hey, this is going to be different, which is why I've been preaching that this is different. So I'm going to continue with that theme and say, no, we're not cursed in the second round at defensive tackle, but not off to a great start with that injury. I will say that, but I expect him to be back before the start of the regular season. And that's all that matters. He'll be back sometime in August. if all things go well, there are no setbacks. And I'm just going to assume that. Probably shouldn't do that, but I am. And we'll just go from there. And then your first question, he says, what are your expectations for just Jahan Dotson with Daniels at quarterback? I expect him to be closer to the Jahan Dotson that we saw in his rookie season and less like the guy we saw last year that was invisible for much of the year. Clearly, we had a offensive coordinator last year, an offensive coordinator who didn't give a shit about getting his best players to football. He was more concerned with spreading the ball around, and that's cool. But when you don't have Mahomes and you don't have Tyreek Hill or you don't have a Travis Kelce and the other guys just fill in the blanks, you got to get the ball to your best. You got to get the ball to your best players. We failed to do that last year, and Jahan Dotson is one of our best offensive players. So rookie season, you couldn't go to any Washington Commanders fan in his rookie season and ask them if Jahan Dotson is a good receiver or not based off of what he did. There were no questions about that. Like, if he didn't get hurt, I don't know if he makes it to 1,000 yards. I don't think he makes it because he's still, what was he, a 500 or 600 yard receiver that year? But the 7 touchdowns stand out, and he made big plays in that rookie season. And we saw glimpses of a guy that could be a difference maker. We saw enough of them. It wasn't just a glimpse here and a glimpse there. The game-time touchdown against the Giants in the first game, the big catch against the Giants in the second game, the touchdown catch, I think the only touchdown we even scored in the second Giants game, he had on a post route. He had the big catch late in the fourth quarter that kind of set up a drive that I think Heineke fumbled on that we get no points on, but that was a big catch there. He had the catches against Dallas in that final game of the season, those slants that got us all excited about Sam Howell and the catch and run ability of Jahan Dotson. Obviously, he had the game, the first game of the season, he had 2 touchdown catches, including the game clincher against Jacksonville. Really, that was the game winner, not the game clincher. That gave us the lead in that ball game. Then he had a catch the next week against Detroit for a touchdown. Had the touchdown against Dallas on a beautiful corner route. It was Carson Wentz's best throw as a Commander. You could argue that and the touchdown throw to Terry down the sideline against Jacksonville in week 1. That was pretty special too. But Jahan came out of the gates guns a-blazing. Like, he showed us what he could be. And then obviously the injury kind of put a damper on that in his rookie season. But we saw enough to know, right? And last year was really disappointing. We had such high hope for him. We were talking about 1,000 yards for him and what he could be in this offense. And all of a sudden, he's a non-factor, right? And he was more of a product of his environment than anything that he did or didn't do. So I think he's going to look more like the rookie season Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be a problem because Cliff Kingsbury, all we've heard all season is Cliff Kingsbury is a master at getting his best players the football and in positions to be successful. If that's true, Jahan Dotson is going to eat good in this offense. And if he's healthy, I am certain of that. So I'm expecting big things from Jahan Dotson this year. I really, truly am. And I think that he has a chance to really emerge as that Robin to Terry McLaurin's Batman and really give Terry the help that he's been searching for his entire career. And, Terry's never had stability at the quarterback position. I think he can get both stability at the quarterback position and a running mate all in the same year, something that he's been searching for a very long time. I think all of it kind of comes to fruition this season and moving forward. And I couldn't be any happier for a guy like Terry, but I think Jahan is going to show a lot of people. There are a lot of Commanders fans right now that are questioning whether this dude is good and was he even worth a first-round pick? I think he's going to show that he was worth that first-round pick and then some. So I'm excited about his season this year. I really am. Thank you once again for the super chat, Chris McLaughlin. Art by Rapid. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Art by Rapid writes, Louie, win the Super Friends chat. Can't wait for you to talk your shit to Queen Brunson. Raise hell. So a lot of y'all clearly have not been paying attention, which is fine. I'm not upset. I don't like repeat myself a bunch of times about something that I've talked about a bunch of times, but I can't be upset that you might not have made it to the hour and 25-minute mark of a video, right? You might have watched the first 45 minutes and didn't get this, whenever I said it in past videos. I can't be upset about that. And I've never made like a specific video that just talked about that. So it's easy for you to not have seen this. But right now, let's call it this. Right now, the Super Friends are on pause. Let's look at it from that perspective. Could we come back at some point? Maybe. I wouldn't rule it out. But right now, don't look for it. That's all I'm going to tell you. And if we are coming back at any point, you'll know, because we'll tell you. I'll tell you. But for now, don't look for it. Okay, don't look for it for right now. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, for real, Louie, talk your mess to LB this time. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, the Super Friend's going to try and talk and say JD is RG3, injury history, blah, blah, blah. Raise hell. I mean, that's low-hanging fruit. I'm not going, argue back and forth with somebody. First things first, knock on wood, this man has never really sustained any major injuries. Robert Griffin III came into the NFL having already torn his ACL before. So he already had sustained an injury. And, for as much as people make about Jaden Daniels' size, this, that, and the third, he's never been injured, in a major way in college. Yeah, he's come out of ball games, and he's also come back into ball games. The only game that he didn't start and finish in his career, or at least last year in particular, I can't speak to his career, but last year was the Alabama game where he took a helmet-to-helmet shot from Dallas Turner. Outside of that, he's been pretty durable. He left the Missouri game, came back in and finished it. So, to me, I think that whole thing has been overblown because people automatically see a mobile quarterback, a guy that uses his legs in a dynamic way like Jaden Daniels, and the first thing they associate with that guy, if he's not, sturdy, is he's going to get injured. And then you look at what Anthony Richardson did last year. He's this big 6'4", 240-pound quarterback, and he doesn't make it out of the first 5 games of the season, right? Gets injured in like week 1 or 2, gets injured again, and then done for the season. So a lot of people look at Anthony Richardson and say, he's 6'4", 240, and he couldn't even make it out of his rookie season. What do you think is going to happen to this 6'3", 6'4" quarterback that's 210 pounds and looks like a string bean? Well, I tell you that, sometimes being that big physical guy makes you feel like you're, invincible. You can do shit, run through this guy, run through that guy. And you're not always the most flexible. Guys that are kind of skinny, got that rubbery kind of frame, those guys are sometimes more durable, more flexible, more able to withstand punishment than the guys that are rocked up. The guys that are tightly wound, those are the guys that get hurt a lot more. I see that all the time. Would you rather have your quarterback have some meat on his bones? Sure. It's much better to have a guy like Josh Allen at 6'5", 235 pounds than it is 6'4", 210. But I think Jaden Daniels can hold his own. So anybody making that connection to Robert Griffin III, I think it's low-hanging fruit, and I think it's a false narrative. One that I'm not going to let slide. I can't speak for anybody else. I ain't going to let this shit ride. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, I'm worried about Forbes' development last year. Brian Mitchell said he is easy to beat with the double move. I mean, you can see a little bit of that on tape. I saw a guy that could be beat with double moves. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. I'm not as concerned with his development yet because I'll say this. I don't think he was properly coached. I don't think he was put in positions to succeed last year. You got a different staff. Joe Witt Jr. in particular, who's known for developing defensive backs. And I just look at what they did last year, or the last 2 years, rather, with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland in particular, those last 2 years. Bland came into the league, 5 interceptions in his rookie season, set the NFL record last year with the most pick sixes, had about 10 interceptions, like 6 of them went to the crib, whatever that number was, which was ridiculous. I just see what they've done for guys like that, and I say they can do the same thing for Emmanuel Forbes. Why not? He's got that same ability. Why not? So I think he's going to be fine. And again, I told you I'm going to err on the side of being optimistic because that's my personality. So he might still be trash. He might not be. Look, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I was against drafting him over Gonzalez in the first round. I think most of us felt that way. This group has already said that they really liked Emmanuel Forbes, and they liked him when he was coming out. Just because they liked him doesn't mean they liked him more than Gonzalez. I've heard people even say the Cowboys said that, you know, they were interested, and Dan Quinn said that if he was there, they would have, you know, thought about taking him. Yeah, because they didn't expect Gonzalez to be there. They expected, you know, Forbes to potentially be. If we didn't draft Forbes, I don't think anybody else would have in the first round until you got to the latter portion of the first round, into the mid to late 20s. I don't think anybody else was thinking about drafting him. The Giants took the kid out of Maryland. I don't think they would have taken Forbes over the kid that they took out of Maryland last year. Like all the other teams that drafted corners after Forbes, after we took Forbes, I don't think they would have taken Forbes before the guy that they ultimately took. Deonte Banks went to the Giants, and Christian Gonzalez went the very next pick to New England after we took Forbes. I don't think any of the teams that took those players would have taken Forbes over those guys. Now, there could have been another team that would have taken Forbes over the player they ultimately chose in the first round. But whatever the case may be, I think the kid has talent, and this group, if any, can get it out of him. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the case. Derek B, been a member for 32 months. My guy, Derek B, writes, 2022 LSU had freshmen at left tackle and right tackle. JD5's numbers down plus 40 sacks. So, again, you can make numbers say whatever you want them to say, but you also don't forget that that was Jaden Daniels' first year at LSU, and that was his first year in a brand new offensive scheme. So you can call it whatever you want. You can take the numbers. You can make them say whatever you want, but a guy's going to struggle. Joe Burrow's first year at LSU didn't look anything like his second year at LSU. I mean, what are we talking about? I don't expect a guy to transfer, show up at a new university with a new staff, with a new offense, and I just expect him to just seamlessly transition and kill it. That's not how it usually works, right? A lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on, and so you got to adjust and adapt. He did that, right? And he did it in year 2, which is standard operating procedure in college football. Guy transfers that first year, not great. Not most of the time, not great. Second year is usually better than the first year. The difference for a guy like, say, Caleb Williams, who transferred from Oklahoma to USC, literally, he came to USC with the guy that he was with at Oklahoma, so he didn't have to learn a new offense. He went from one conference that doesn't play defense to another conference that doesn't play defense, and he had the same offense that he had been in the 2 previous years. Or the one previous year at Oklahoma. So he was comfortable, right? So it's not an apples to apples comparison. So, I mean, if you want to point that out and use 2022, because he had a freshman left and right tackle, go right ahead. Knock yourself out. I'll tell you that his numbers were down because he was in a new scheme and at a new university, and he had to get accustomed to the players that were around him, what they were asking him to do, learning a new offense, learning, what they were asking him to do, all of that stuff is going to contribute to him having pedestrian numbers or average numbers, because the numbers he had in 2022, were on par with the numbers that he had the previous 3 years as a starter at Arizona State. So it's not like it was, some numbers that were like, whoa, what is this? Like he was down. Like Drake May, for instance, his first year as a starter at North Carolina, and then his numbers dipped. But again, you can call it what you want: lack of talent, offensive line shifts, moving parts, lost guys to the NFL. We can blame it on a number of things. I just go back to brand new offensive coordinator. Let's keep it simple. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel. You asked me to learn a brand new offense. You asked me to come in here and change everything that I've been doing, that I've had success doing. It's going to take a little while. So it is what it is. Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Derek B writes. So yeah, and that's the comment that you just pretty much said. And yeah, again, that might have contributed to his numbers, but they also said he put in a lot of work with the virtual reality stuff, and that helped him a lot. But also, again, being in Brian Kelly's offense for the second year, I've watched Brian Kelly get a lot of great production out of some mediocre quarterbacks throughout his life as a coach. Ian Book for 3 years at Notre Dame. I watched him take guys that were, less than stellar and get them to play really good football. But you got to get comfortable in Brian Kelly's system. Jaden Daniels was able to do that. Just took him 2 years. And that's what you expect. Again, that's what I expect. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, my bad, Lou. Didn't know. You good, bro. It's all good. Like I said, not everybody was paying attention, and not everybody makes it to, the 2 hour and 27 minute mark, 2 hour and 27 minute mark of a video that's 4 hours long, or that's 3 hours and 13 minutes long. You might not stick around for all of that to get to where somebody asked about it, right? I'm not going to beat you up about that. By the way, who do you think is going to emerge from our defensive ends and surprise us? I don't know if there's a surprise coming at defensive end, to be honest with you. We know the 4 guys that are going to get most of the snaps if everybody's healthy, right? Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler Jr., Cleveland Farrell, and more likely than not, F.A. Obata. Now, could somebody emerge from the guys that were here last year? The dude that they got off the Bears practice squad, Andre Jones Jr., 7th round pick last year, KJ Henry, 5th round pick last year. Sure. Absolutely, one of those dudes could emerge and do something. The likelihood is they won't. If I had to pick one of those dudes, I'd probably take, I'd probably say Andre Jones because of his length and his size. I think he could be somebody that could intrigue them, but he didn't show me anything last year. KJ didn't show me much last year. And I don't hold that against rookies, but you know when you see it when you see it, right? Like normally with guys like that, you see it quickly, and you're like, yo, hey, we got something here. I didn't see that. Like once we traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young, we had nothing from a pass rushing standpoint. Nobody said, hey, I'll step up and be that guy for you. Nobody did. Not a single individual. That's why none of them are here right now. Not James Smith-Williams, not Casey Toohill. None of those dudes stepped up. So, F.A., we've seen flashes from F.A. We know he's capable, and he fits the Dan Quinn DNA profile of a defensive lineman with some flexibility, right? Where you can move him up and down the defensive line and create mismatches. So, yeah, F.A., I don't really see anybody surprising us. I think we know what that position group is going to look like. Again, assuming everybody's healthy, assuming health. Booker, been a member for 25 months. I got Book. Writes, can you give an NFL comp for Jaden's arm talent? I said his arm reminds me a lot of that of Deshaun Watson. You know, Deshaun Watson and even Joe Burrow to a lesser degree. Joe Burrow doesn't have a strong arm. Like, it's not a rocket arm. He can get the ball anywhere on the field, though. Deshaun Watson does not have a rocket arm. He can get the football anywhere on the field, though. Right? We make so much of guys who can, throw it through a wall, like Joe Milton III. He can throw the thing 80 yards, flat-footed. But he can't throw an 8-yard pass accurately. Who gives a shit, right? We make so much of big arm. The only time I make a big deal out of arm strength and arm talent is if you don't have any of it. Like Taylor Heineke, for instance. That's when it's an issue. Because when you got a guy that has the mentality of a Taylor Heineke who thinks, I'm a gunslinger, I'm going to throw this bitch wherever I want on the field, but the arm talent is like, bro, you got limitations, but his mind is like, we ain't got no limitations. That's how you get hurt. That's how you turn it over. That's how you make mistakes. Jaden Daniels can put the ball everywhere it needs to go in the NFL. I'm not worried about his arm talent. I'm not worried about, can he throw outside the numbers? Can he throw the deep ball? I think he's going to be fine. I got no issues. But I'd say it's Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow. It's in that neighborhood in terms of arm talent. Abdullah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdullah writes, I want us to trade for Marshawn Lattimore. I was definitely interested in him, but the Saints aren't going to just give him away. And he's not young. He's not a spring chicken, but he's still got good football left in him. I think he's only 27. He's probably about to turn 28 if I had to guess. He's an elite corner, though. Like, when he's healthy, that's been the problem with him, too, is he hasn't really been fully healthy the last 2 years or so. But I'll just tell you this. I wouldn't have been opposed to trading for him because unlike a L'Jarius Sneed, who you knew you had to pay, Marshawn has been paid already, and I still think he's got 2 or 3, probably 2 years or so left on that contract. So it is what it is. It's probably looking like a steal now compared to some of the other deals that have been done. So I wouldn't be opposed. But again, the Saints aren't just going to give him away. I view Marshawn Lattimore as a first-round talent, and he's lived up to that. And if I'm trading him, I want a first-round pick, especially on the contract that he's currently under. I want a first-round pick. Are you willing to part ways with a first-round pick for Marshawn Lattimore? The answer should be no, especially where we are. Again, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, which is why I put that in my mock draft, you lose L'Jarius Sneed, you need to replace him. They like the young guys that they've developed, the Jalen Watsons and all the other guys that they've been developing here over the last couple of years. They like those young boys, but they're not L'Jarius Sneed. But they're in a position where they're trying to win now, right? They're trying to do something no NFL team has ever done, win 3 Super Bowls in a row in the Super Bowl era. Marshawn Lattimore would make a ton of sense for them. He doesn't make a ton of sense for us because by the time we're actually competing for something meaningful, Marshawn Lattimore is pushing 30. That doesn't make sense for us. So I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. OKC done took the damn lead. Look at this bullshit here. Disappointed in Dallas. Y'all got one job to do, and y'all letting these young boys come in your gym and steal one from you. You got to get a stop here, and then you got to get a bucket, and it's got to be quick. You don't get this stop, the game over. That's good defense. Rebound. Got to finish possession with a rebound. Now you got to go. Alley. Yeah. All right. And you got time. You don't got to foul. Now you down 2. Get a stop. And then you can hurt their head right here. And they can't recover. You beat them in a Denver Nugget fashion like they did the Lakers. These boys are dead. Shea about to pull up in the mid-range too. Watch this. He getting on my damn nerves. Bop. Ooh, in and out. Ooh. All right. Kyrie, Luka, let's do it. Game time. All right. Got a shot. That's all you want. All you want is a chance. Damn, that shit went down and came out, boy. Touch every part of the rim. Went as far down as you can go without staying down. So I get it, Abdullah. I love Marshawn Lattimore, but again, for where we are, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Rashad, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rashad writes, "What's up, Lou? You're not posting or going live for 2 days had me rethinking life. Hope you recharge a good amount. I can't go through that again. Y'all hit that like button. Go ahead, man. I had already warned you, though, what the situation was going to be over the weekend. I told you I was going to be out of the office. I was going to be celebrating with the fam, Mother's Day, all that good stuff. And I wasn't going to be back till Monday. So you already knew what it was. I left you a little something on Saturday morning, though. So it only had been 1 day, technically speaking. I gave you something Saturday morning. I just didn't do anything Sunday, and I'm back on Monday. You made it seem like I was gone for about a week or something like that, Rashad. I appreciate it, though. I appreciate the love. All right. Y'all got to give me a second. 12.3 seconds left. OKC up to Dallas with the ball with a chance to tie and send it to OT or win the game. You got to go where you give yourself enough time to rebound a miss. So I don't expect them. The game is not tied, so I don't expect them. Luka going to the basket. He should have been shot that, though. He got too damn close. Get up, man, and you better make these free throws. He went too damn fast, though. Like, I mean, he was going towards the basket and he got a good look. But damn, you left 10 seconds. Like, now OKC, I mean, assuming that he made both free throws. Now OKC get the last shot and send the game to overtime. He should have been shot it, though. He got too deep into the lane. He should have shot that off the glass before he got there. I need you to make these 2 free throws. If this game go to overtime, they're going to win. All right, Luka. Don't piss me off now. Missed the first damn free throw. Yo, stinking ass. Should have known. You should have shot the damn ball before you got that damn close to the defender. Now you got to make this shot, and then you got to foul. God damn it, Luka. Yeah, one job. One damn job. All right, y'all got to foul immediately now. And hope they miss a free throw. Because if I'm them, I make both free throws, I'm fouling y'all ass. Y'all ain't shooting no damn threes. I'm fouling. As soon as you get that bitch inbounds. Oh, that's the story of the game right there. At the free throw line. Mavericks 11 of 21. They left 10 points out there. 52% in the damn playoff game is disgusting. You deserve to lose. Meanwhile, OKC 19 of 20. 95%. That's the shit I'm talking about. When you talking playoff basketball, that's the type of shit I'm talking about right there. Those kind of things right there lose you games. 51% in a playoff game is ridiculous, including a chance to tie the game up at the end and you miss. They deserve. Now that I saw that stat, y'all deserve to lose this game. I can't even root for y'all to win this game now. Go back to OKC tied up at 2. You deserve to lose this game. You missed 10 free throws, including a chance to tie the game up in the fourth quarter. Take this L. Take this L. That's loser basketball. That's one thing about my Grizzlies that worries me is our inability to make free throws. We got to get better at that because this time of the year, that's when that shit shows up. You got a bunch of 75 and 79 and 78% free throw shooters. They're going to shoot true to form, and they might even miss an extra shot or 2 in the postseason because of a little bit more pressure. Foul him, foul him, foul him. Okay. See if Chet ass, the moment ain't too big for his young ass. See what he do. Chet about to knock these joints down. But that's who you want to foul, though. Even though he probably a really good free throw shooter. It's pressure, though. It hit different. Three or four, just like Luka was, 3 or 4 from the strike. So he can give me one. The only free throw they missed tonight, he missed it. So you can give me one. But I ain't going to beg because they went 11 to 21. I ain't going to beg. If Chet knocked these down, they deserve it. I ain't going to beg them. Normally, I would beg in this situation. I ain't begging. Y'all had y'all opportunities. Shame on y'all. Shameful. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm coming. We about to wrap this thing up. Yep, Chet knocked them both down like he's supposed to. They don't have no timeouts. I'm fouling as soon as this ball get in bounds. They not gonna foul? Yeah, they gonna foul him as soon as he get there. They tripping. Gotta look. What they call? What we doing? Oh, they called a foul before he passed the ball. Okay, got it. Oh, that was close. If PJ Washington was shooting the ball, that would have been 3 shots. He got lucky. PJ was looking for the pass because they called a foul. He was in the shooting motion, but he ended up passing the rock, so it don't matter. Yeah, this game over now. You got to make the first one and miss the second one, and he missed the first one. Okay, yeah, I'm done with these clowns. Done with these clowns. All right. Hey, I told you what the situation was, Rashad, but I appreciate you checking for the kid, man. I do appreciate that. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, would you do it for a second round pick? I would think long and hard about that. Yeah, I'd be willing to do it for a second round pick potentially. But again, it don't make sense from a timeline standpoint. And everything that I'm doing if I'm Washington has to make sense from a timeline standpoint. Now, they've made it abundantly clear that they're not trying to lose. They want to win. They're not trying to come in here and, go 5-12 this year. If they can be 8-9, that's what they're trying to do. And a guy like Marshawn Lattimore is good enough to help you get to 9-8, right? But again, why spend your money that way? Why spend a draft pick that way when you can just continue to build this thing the way that you're currently building it? That don't make any sense. I would think about a second round pick, though, for sure. That makes it a lot more within reason than a first rounder, right? Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, Hendrickson from Cincinnati wants to trade. How about it? Again, they're not just giving him away. Trey Hendrickson, and part of the reason he wants to trade is because Cincinnati won't pay him. The man is coming off of like a 17 and a half sack season, and that's off the heels of a season where he probably had like 19 to 20 sacks before that, right? Like, I don't know the exact numbers, but he's been killing it in Cincinnati. So he deserves to be paid. But they like, bro, we're not going to pay you for what you just finished doing. We're going to pay you for what you're going to do in the future, and we're not sure you're going to do what you've been doing. So, hey, just finish out your contract. And he like, nah, I ain't trying to hear that shit. I'm trying to get my money now. So if you trade for him, you got to pay him. And what I don't want to do, I got PTSD. I still got scars from paying dudes for what they've done and not what they're going to do into the future. For years, we were the destination where you came to get that final big payday, even though you weren't going to play at that level no more. We were the destination. I don't want to be that destination anymore. So, nah. Trey Hendrickson for a year or two would be awesome. He won a 4-year deal. He won a 3-year deal with big guaranteed money. I ain't trying to do that because you might get one good season out of him, and then the rest of the years might be subpar, right? Not what you are paying for, essentially. So you got to be careful with situations like that. Because he's going into this will be his 3rd contract. this next one he gets. So Trey Hendrickson probably got to be, he probably 28, 29 right now. Probably 28, 29 right now. Because he was a 3rd round pick out of, I want to say it wasn't Florida International, I don't think. One of them Florida schools. I think it was one of them Florida schools. And that's 4 years. And he didn't come out early, I don't think. He probably was a 4-year dude, maybe even 5. So he probably was 22, 21, 22 when he came in the NFL. Spent 4 years in New Orleans. He's been in Cincinnati for about 3-4 years now. So he got to be pushing 28, 29 years old. Frankie Yo. Been a member for 25 months. It's a big win for OKC. Big win for them on the road. Can't fade some of these Madden trade people are coming up with. I'd like us to trade for Herbert. I think a 3rd that turns into a 2nd if we get to the Super Bowl gets it done. Yeah, it's a lot of craziness that comes up this time of the year. But, you know, people love doing that stuff. I steer clear of that because I deal with reality. I don't live in the fantasy world. So I let people have their fun, say what they got to say. They can do whatever they want to do. They can say what they want to say. But I deal in reality, right? So that's just how I do it. And, you know, to defend Abdallah, nothing Abdallah said was like fantasy football, Madden craziness, right? It's not like how these mock drafts will have you getting, you know, trading back and getting 19 first-round picks and picking all the players that you want. That, you know, that's not what Abdallah just suggested, you know. Marshawn Lattimore could be available for the right price. I'm just not willing to pay that price. Trey Hendrickson, just because he demanded a trade doesn't mean he's going to get a trade. And Cincinnati has shown in the past that they don't cave to players' demands. They didn't cave to Ocho Cinco once upon a time when we tried to give them 2 first-round picks for him, which would have been stupid. So glad that they saved us from ourselves. They didn't cave to Carson Palmer when he demanded a trade. They made his ass sit out a season almost, right? They don't give a shit. You want to trade? That's cool. You don't tell us what to do. That's how they operate business. So Trey Hendrickson can want to trade. Same thing can be said for their receiver, T. Higgins. You can want to trade. We run the show. You don't tell us what we're gonna do. So I don't see either one of those teams players going anywhere, but we'll see what happens. Abdallah, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Abdallah writes, I think I am just used to Howie Roseman magic. Yeah, but the players that he's getting they usually aren't these type of players we having a conversation about. The only guy he got like that was AJ Brown. Right, like Darius Slay, when they got him, he hadn't been, you know, at his best in Detroit. He had dealt with some injuries, and so, you know, and he needed to be paid, right? So it was like a perfect storm, sort of like where Marshawn Lattimore, but it's a little different because in Detroit, you know, they were kind of growing apart. Darius Slay and the Detroit Lions. That's not the case with, you know, Marshawn Lattimore. AJ Brown is the only guy that they traded for that was that dude before they traded for him, and they gave him a first-round pick for him. It's not like they fleeced the Tennessee Titans. They got a first-round pick for him. And, you know, now what they did with that first-round pick, that's on them, but they got a first-round pick for him. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, Howie is a magician. Like you said, he does magic. He's a magician with how he maneuvers things. But he finds teams who are willing to deal, who are looking to get from under a player, and he sees value in that guy, and he's willing to do business with that team that's looking to get from under a guy. And that's usually like CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? The Saints didn't want to pay him. He wanted to be paid. The Saints didn't want to pay him. They saw an opportunity. They pounced. They were willing to move him because they said, either we move him now or we get nothing for him. So they moved him. That's not Trey Hendrickson, though. That's not Marshawn Lattimore. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Once again, shout out to my guy, Sonny Rawson, for being the first to sign up and register for the LouieTeeNetwork Lifestyle Dominican Republic trip to Hard Rock Cafe. Excited about the trip, excited about Sonny signing up. Hopefully more of you will do the same. And there'll be more information coming out about that in the coming weeks here. But once again, the link is in the description. I dropped the link in the comment section already. And I've seen some of the mods dropping the link in there as well. So if you want to sign up for that trip, please click that link, fill out the registration form, and pay your registration fee and lock your position in. But looking forward to that trip, looking forward to meeting some of you and having a great time in the process. So with that said, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be back tomorrow night for the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Wednesday, we'll have this full schedule. We'll break that down, talk about that schedule. Will be nice and early that night, probably 8:30, because the schedule drops 8. I want to have a chance to kind of digest it first, kind of give you a chance to kind of digest it yourself, and then we'll react to it pretty much in real time at 8:30, because even though you've had a chance to digest it, you'll still be relatively new to you. I just want to kind of get a chance to look at it, formulate some opinions, and then we can really like dive in on Wednesday. And then Thursday, got it. Another episode of the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. That was going to be a special LouieTeeNetwork podcast. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for that one. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys take care. Have a good one. God bless. Good night.